This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Good morning to all our viewers and to and beyond Ngala, where this morning we have the sun rising with a small family of zebra right in front. Now, welcome aboard your live safari in the African bush. As we can see with these zebra this morning, we have a mother and a young one grooming each other there. Probably a little bit relieved after surviving the night, and there's a wind blowing this morning, and the animals have just moved from the thicker bush off to the side of this clearing, where now they are standing and waiting for that sun to come up. Now, I am JAPIE, and behind the camera we have Owen. And this morning, our plan is from here. We're just stopping, having a little bit of a listen out to see if there might be anything happening nearby. But I think we're going to head along to the Timbavati riverbed this morning and see if we might find any signs of leopard. You can see that it looks like one male off to the left-hand side, and then the mother and the young one. Now, it is unusual to see a small group of zebra like this over here. This particular area they're in have been well sought after lately. There's still a lot of grass around, and there's a dry riverbed not far from here where the elephants go and dig for water, and sometimes these animals can access it. You can see the mother and the young ones cleaning those hard-to-reach places, behind the ears, along the neck, just above the shoulders. Because they've been laying down, probably picked up some things like ticks during the night, so trying to get some of those parasites off and the knots out of the fur. So I think we're going to leave these zebra for now, and then myself and Owen's going to continue to see if we might find some signs of leopard.
Good morning, hello, welcome. We are driving into a southeast headwind, very strong, and we were looking at a brown-headed parrot that unfortunately flew off as soon as it heard that it was about to make its world premiere on the internet. My name is James Henry. On camera today, the very fine Theodore. As you can see, he's very island style this morning. I hope you're all well. Please talk to us using the hashtag WildEarth on Twitter. Alternatively, of course, you may use the chat stream on YouTube or Twitch. And if that doesn't work for you, you can try kids' questions at wildearth.tv. So many ways that you may talk to us, ask us questions, or send us your comments. We'll just have a quick look at the sun coming up there while I scour the branches above our heads for that parrot. There we are. The low felt is about to be bathed in new light from the morning. So yesterday there was a northwest wind blowing. It's swapped directions today. And so I don't see any smoke from that fire that was moving down towards this area. It was never a threat, but it was moving this way yesterday. I'm sure it's gone out during the night. And this is a cold wind, which tells me that there's a front blowing in. Or the end of a front, or some sort of cold weather system, which is unlikely to bring snow, thankfully. all you can hear there is the crested francolin shouting. It's always good to stop and have a listen in the morning once you're out of camp, away from the noise and the bustle. You can hear the parrots off to the left. Psst, psst, psst. Sounds like the proverbial nails on a blackboard. Some kind of metallic screech. Otherwise we're listening out for alarm calls, sounds of feeding. Doves. Hello, kids at the St. Louis School in Melbourne, Australia. Well, as I said, the weather is pretty windy, cold wind coming in from the southeast, about 15 degrees Celsius, I'm told. Very clear, no clouds in the sky. That might change during the course of the day with this wind. But in general, at this time of the year, it's starting to warm up a bit. The really cold mornings are behind us, and slowly the mornings are warming up. And often also in this part of the world, the heat arrives one day. It's not a very slow build. Suddenly something happens and you'll have a really hot afternoon. There was one really hot afternoon last week, but it still feels quite wintry. And I think on that note we will carry on. Oh, so what biome? St. Louis School, the biome that this national park belongs to, well, I mean, there are a few. And it depends, I suppose, on how big or small you define your biome. But we'd call this bushveld. Bushveld. And then if we got really small, or just looked at this particular area and the area around here, we'd call it broad-leafed combretum woodland. Broad-leafed combretum or bush willow woodland. But otherwise it's known as bushveld savanna.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to an active hyena den on Djuma with the Djuma clan. We have cubs, we have adults. I haven't even figured out. No, please don't leave. I will cry if they leave, everybody. But my name is Lauren. I have BK on camera today, and it's a chilly, windy morning here in Djuma. But the sun is up and out. It's 15 degrees Celsius and 59 degrees Fahrenheit. Hello, Shimbulu and Ngwazi. Now, sadly, everyone, I did not get an ID. We have just arrived. Oh, there's an adult kicking up dirt here. I saw a ribbon, but I didn't see anyone else. And if the adults do wander off, you know the score, everyone. We will have to leave. They're obviously spending a lot more time at the den during the night. And of course, it's actually quite late here. We start our safaris once the sun is up. So if they move off, then we will have to move off too, which is really, really sad. But it's lovely to see them. Hi, guys. Oh, it's nice and warm in the den, isn't it? I would much rather be in a termite mound than out here, exposed to the wind. Although I'm not sure I would want to be in this particular termite mound. I'm sure it's rather smelly. And off the adults go. Am I allowed to cry on air? I don't know. They're off on a mission though. I wonder if I'll be able to loop round and catch them. That tail is up. Do you see that? The dominance display. They're not moving too fast though. Okay, well that was a brief sighting. But a wonderful one. I think I'm going to try and loop round and catch them. Maybe they're onto something. We've just heard the Nkuhumas are on Cheetah Plains, so there's no lions around here, but they could be on the scent of a leopard. So, after the hyenas, I go.
Well, I hope the Nkuhumas gets found this morning. We have actually not moved on from our last spot, and we've decided to stay in this beautiful clearing where the sun has just risen above the tree line. And now the warm rays is falling down on this clearing that we're looking into, and with that all things here have come alive. You can hear the birds going. Yellow-billed hornbills are calling. After a long night, the male and female is just calling towards each other, strengthening that bond. The zebras are still in the same spot. And the little one has moved a little bit further away from its mother, but you can see not much movement, pretty much in exactly the same spot. Not much moving besides the ears. Now often on the early mornings like this, we hear the large predators like the lion, sometimes even the leopard or the hyena call. And I've often found that animals literally, when they move to the areas where they're going to be spending their day, they usually spend a little bit of time on the edges of those areas, like these zebras are doing now. And then they just listen out to see what might be happening in the area around. And then it was also a cool morning, so they definitely need to warm up a little bit as well. But what a beautiful start to this morning. St. Louis School, what vegetation we have around us? Well, this area is quite a varied area. It is right on the bank of a small dry riverbed. That is one of the bigger tributaries we have in this area that runs into the Timbavati riverbed, the big riverbed in the area. And this particular bank, this is what we call almost like a floodplain. It's got some grasses, which the zebra will be here for, and that's what they're going to be eating. And there's lots of different grasses, good grasses, with attracting a lot of the grazer animals, or the animals that eat grass only. Then we have the trees in the back line. There's a couple of dead ones around that used to be knob thorns, which is a thorn tree that grows on good soils near the riverbeds, like that big one over there. That's a big knob thorn. It looks like there's a dove of some sort sitting up in front. Then we have some leadwood trees around here, which is a very slow growing tree, and it takes very, very long, like that big tree over there, it takes very, very long for it to get to that size. And then most of the green shrub-like shorter trees we see around, they are called magic worries. So this would be a typical South African bushveld scene with regards to the vegetation, at least in the low-veld area. And then the grass plains behind us, where we have the riverbed, which we can't see now, there would be a lot of varied trees and plants in that section, because there's still a little bit of water underneath the sand. So there's just a slight breeze going now. This morning before these zebras walked into this clearing, we saw one get a little bit of a fright from something in the tall grass. You can see at the moment the ears are pushed backwards and it looks extremely relaxed. But earlier, when it was moving from wherever it spent laying down in the early morning hours, it was a little bit spooked by the wind. It is what an incredible scene. Now I think we might just watch these zebras warm up for a little while longer, and if nothing changes we might continue to a different area.
So we are just sitting here in the midst of a little bird party, watching all the birds wake up and the sun slowly rise above the bushveld. It's quite a beautiful morning actually, very relaxing, very calm. Hi, my name is Mike. Behind the camera we've got Gert, and we are here at Eco-Trading's Pridelands Conservancy, just enjoying everything waking up. You can hear the hornbills around us, lots of drongos, plenty of small seed eaters and finches, waxbills. We actually heard it this morning when we were waking up, getting out of bed. So we're just waiting to see if it calls again. We haven't heard it again. But you can see lots of little birds flitting about, hopping around in the trees. Very difficult to see them. They're all a little bit further away, but I'm actually looking still for that green-winged petilia. I know that James did show you one briefly yesterday, very briefly. I don't even think it counts, to be honest. So we're going to hopefully find ourselves a little petilia this morning. But in the meantime, let's keep moving. I haven't heard anything else, and the bird party is slowly moving off. So we'll keep getting ourselves towards ourselves and seeing what we can come up with. I hope it's a wonderful morning wherever you are, or evening. It doesn't get much more wonderful than this. You can see this gorgeous golden light falling on this dry grass. Absolutely spectacular.
This particular flower that we have over here is nondescript in so much as it's sort of a greenish colour. It's not a great flamboyant rose or carnation or lily, but it packs a punch smell-wise. Now at the moment the flowers are not really at the most enthusiastic, but very soon and in the evenings they'll start to smell like rotting mothballs. So you all know what naphthalene balls smell like, or mothballs. That's what these things smell like. It's a very unpleasant smell, and I can only think that it's because they're pollinated by some sort of perhaps scavenging or carrion-eating beetle or moth, a nocturnal one. Right now they smell quite nice actually, but in the night, especially when the season gets a bit later, they smell utterly disgusting. Rotting naphthalene is not a smell you want to assail your nostrils. The bush itself is called the red spikethorn, or Gymnosporia senegalensis. Gymnosporia senegalensis. There you are, Theo. Was that the most exciting thing you've seen all day? I bet it was, next to your first cup of coffee, of course. We're now in the valley of the great Mluwamati River, and we're going to be heading along the river and then off to the east.
Good luck in the east, James. I know you want to find our queen. Now, we're just admiring this male giraffe. It's not the one with the injury. We can hear hyenas calling. I don't know if it's the hyenas that we just saw at the den. Ribbon and her gang. I feel like Sutu was there, but I'm really not sure. So we're just going to sit and keep listening. You see this male just browsing away. I imagine we'll keep seeing more and more giraffes as the knobthorns are flowering and spring is slowly approaching. It's a perfect time for giraffes. A lot of the male giraffes around right now are very, very dark, which is said to correlate directly to their status. So it means we have a lot of dominant males around, and it wouldn't surprise me that some of them are battling. And it really wouldn't surprise me if that's the reason that male had that awful injury. Oh, he's got a squint ossicone. Can you see that? His right ossicone is squint. Now, why are all you males injuring yourself? And we discussed the number of species the other day, which is confirmed at 4. And when you actually look at each of the species, they have a completely different patch pattern. I can't call it spots, that's really not spots, but they have a completely different pattern. You can actually tell which species you're looking at by looking at their patches. In London, you're saying, yay, your favourite animal. It's my father's favourite animal too. He loves giraffes. The more I learn about giraffes, I have to say, the more I come to appreciate them. And I think that goes with any animal. The more you learn about it and how it survives out here, the more you can appreciate it. And they are actually incredible animals. I mean, just look at them. How bizarre. Can you imagine having a neck that long? I definitely couldn't. But they do have the same number of vertebrae as us. They do have 7. They don't have additional sort of bones in their neck that makes it longer. It's just the size of those bones in comparison to ours. Well, it's a huge difference, and there's much larger gaps in between each vertebrae. But they don't actually have anything extra. Now, as lovely as this giraffe is, he is moving into the thicket, and I just want to see if I can find those hyenas. They're up to something. They're being very, very vocal. And out here, you can actually follow hyenas, and sometimes they will lead you to a predator. It's incredible. They will lead you right to a leopard. So I think it's just worth keeping an ear out to see if we can hear our wonderful hyenas. So I'm going to continue bumbling south.
We've got a giraffe here. I think you had a giraffe with Lauren. Now, this giraffe we saw yesterday, we spent quite a lot of time with him, but he was up near the northeastern corner of Djuma. Now he's on the central low-lying areas. I say that as if he's walked a long way. He's probably walked about 1.5 kilometers or a mile. And I know it's him for 2 reasons. One, he's got that very distinctive round blotch above his right eye, so on the left eye that we can see. And then also, that's the one. And then also down his mane, he's got a distinctive notch out of it where the hair is missing. I recognize that from yesterday. And he's just standing enjoying the sunrise, I think. Thankful to have made it through the night. Although for a giraffe of this size, that's not that unusual. But I was also just saying to Theo how swollen his eyes are. And I don't think it's necessarily that they're swollen so much as just calcified. And you can see his skull has laid down various bits and pieces of protective calcification, and above the eyes is obviously a good place to do it if you're going to be fighting with other bull giraffes, because as we've seen with that poor chap who's either lost his eye or certainly done some serious damage to it, protection around the eye for a fighting bull giraffe is very important. Zoe, you're wondering if giraffes are related to camels? Well, they're both ruminants, but that's really as far as it goes. They are not very closely related to camels. There's only one other animal in the giraffe's family, and that's an animal called an okapi. And that particular animal is found only in the rainforests of the Congo Basin. It is endangered as far as I'm aware. It looks like a hybrid between a zebra and a giraffe. It isn't a hybrid between a zebra and giraffe, but that's what it looks like. Ah, yum. Some breakfast. Diane, they might have an infrasonic alarm call that they make to each other. So infrasound is a sound that's too low for us to hear, below the frequency that we can hear. And by low, I don't mean volume-wise, I mean frequency. So if you think about a piano, think about the lowest note on the piano, the bottom note, possibly another piano length lower than that is the frequency that they use to communicate with each other. And it's too low for us to hear, and they may alarm call at each other with some kind of infrasonic sound. They do bellow when they are in distress, so they'll make a kind of loud bellowing noise, but that's not alarm, that's more distress. So I'm assuming that if they do have an alarm call that they use to warn each other of incoming danger, it's probably an infrasonic call. This particular kind of a shot is a cameraman's nightmare because the blinding sun is right behind the giraffe, which means that either we stare at a silhouette like that, which is not particularly helpful if you're trying to see what the animal's doing, or you accept that the sky behind is going to look washed out and overexposed. And there are no other choices. And what's really interesting is that what you're doing here, we're kind of finding a compromise to the giraffe's picture and the background. But our eyes as human beings are amazingly well equipped to deal with that sort of contrast, much better than this camera is. So the picture that I'm looking at with my eyes is much better than the one you're looking at through the camera.
So we've come across these two kudus as we're right on the bank of the Timbavati at the moment, and we saw some leopard tracks not far from here heading down in towards the riverbed. It looks like they were from during the night sometime. And then we came across, there were three, now only two. There's a male with these two that's moved back in towards the denser bush. Ah, there we go. Thought he wouldn't stay away from them for too long. Looks like they're feeding off some of the shorter grasses on the edge of the road. St. Louis School, that is a very good question. How many animals do we have on the reserve? Now, there is unfortunately no way for us to know for sure. Whenever there are game counts or the animal counts being done in this area, they usually use estimations of certain counts that they've done, and they do it over a couple of days. But the nice thing about Ngala is Ngala doesn't have any fences. So it is open to the nearby areas, and therefore animals come and go. Now you can see at this point, those kudus are feeding down on the grass like that one. You can see her head's down, which is a little bit unusual. Summertime we sometimes see kudus feed off grass, but in the wintertime they mainly browse or eat leaves of the trees. So I can't exactly see what they're eating. They might be eating some of fallen off leaves of nearby trees that's blown there into the open. But it might be because they're quite desperate at this point. And the best food for them would be near the riverbed. So as the season changes and things get drier, the animals move from all over and they come and go. Large herds of elephants come in, they move. Some of the lions, for instance, they move to areas outside of Ngala where there might be more water, and others might be coming in. So it's very difficult to say for sure how many animals we have on the reserve, and it keeps changing all the time. Megan, it's good to hear that kudus are amongst your favorite, amongst mine for sure as well. And seeing these two kudus like this, standing out in the open, you can see every now and again they're picking up their head, but that seems to be the most concern they have. Look at those white lips moving as it's chewing the grass. See, it's just stopped. Ears are focusing straight in that area. Maybe it picked up a sound, something that might be suspicious. But the kudus are certainly one of my favorite as well. And normally if you go anywhere else, in areas for instance where there's a lot more movement of people, these animals tend to be a lot more secretive and they hide a lot more. But even here, it's not always that you get to see them out in the open like this. I'm sure they would have moved down here slowly and carefully, scoping out every little bush, every patch of grass, and then finally decided on this one as their spot to start feeding this morning. You notice every now and again one of them will have their heads up, sometimes both of them. I don't see the male at the moment. I'm sure he's gone a little bit further down towards the riverbed. Maybe he's feeding on some of the leaves of the nearby trees. But they need to make sure, like one of the downsides of being a kudu is, although they move in areas that have better food this time of the year, which is along the riverbeds, denser areas, hence their camouflage as well. It does come with its risks. It's a large antelope, a female like this. You can see she doesn't have any horns like the male, so she doesn't really have any proper means of protecting herself other than big ears to hear sounds of moving predators and camouflage. And hooves. Something like a leopard, for instance, might be a little bit small to take on a large kudu like this. But it's also not completely unheard of. You can just see the tail going at the back. Now, you wouldn't expect on a cool winter's morning like this for there to be a lot of flies. But since it's an animal, the flies are usually not far. And that big bushy tail helps to keep them under control. Ooh, that was a clear shot of her ball of food going down her throat as she swallowed. Maria, that is an incredibly good question. What is the rarest vegetation or rarest plant on Ngala? Now, I am not entirely sure. There might be some plants here, especially along the smaller dry riverbeds that we haven't even realized exist here, or that haven't even been identified. I think in the region, the low-veld area with regards to trees and plants is often not considered to be the most diverse comparatively, but I think along the small dry riverbeds we often get surprises. I do think, if I think in terms of large trees, funnily enough, on Ngala itself, one particular one that we've been having a look into and been searching to see if we can find more is the low-veld fig on our side. And as things stand at the moment, I'm only aware of 3 trees on the entire reserve. You can see something's caught this kudu's attention. Now the bird coming in, you can see the bird's just sitting on the back. It's not started going through or combing through the kudu's fur to look for ticks. It's probably just warming up and calling the rest over. But for the kudu, that means that this bird is now not just drawing attention to itself for the others in its family to come over. It also means that it draws attention to the kudu. And the kudus are often aware of that. So if those birds make too much noise, they can serve as an early warning system, or just as a irritation to a point where the animal might move off. Now I saw the oxpecker. It looked like a red bull oxpecker. Moved straight down towards the mane of the kudu. You can see it starting to comb. It's literally combing through the fur. So while the kudu is feeding, it's also getting groomed and cleaned. So these little birds, they serve not just as an early warning system to the animals, but also to us. When we move out here, when we look for certain animals, like giraffe, impala, rhino, the buffalo, especially buffalo bulls. If there's a big herd of buffalo moving through, that's often our cue or our sign. The oxpeckers flying over. Some of them would nest in the nearby dead trees here, and then they literally wait until the sun's up in the morning and the animals start moving into the clearings, and then they head down to them. You see that kudu kind of got surprised by us, it looks like. Standing dead still, no movement. Trying to be undetected while it's scoping out the situation. And then just continues. Amanda, that's a good question. So what noise does kudus make? A kudu barks, funnily enough. I know it doesn't look anything like a dog, but it barks. And it's a very, very loud noise that travels far along the riverbed, even through the thick vegetation around here. And for us, when we are looking for specifically predators, leopard especially, which is a very tricky animal to be found and hides very well, when the kudu spots the predator, it will make a loud barking noise. And it will usually stand staring straight in the direction where the predator is to try and keep sight of it without losing it. In that case, we will usually go and have a look there. Because we find out of all the animals nearby that will shout or make a noise when they do see a predator, the kudu is one of the more reliable ones. With that intense stare from that kudu, I wouldn't be surprised if he starts barking at us. Just look at those large ears. See pink on the inside. There's some long white fur lower down towards the ear canal. very large round eyes, and then of course those white lips. Jacqueline, this is relaxing. The kudu's animals being relaxed early morning with no apparent danger nearby certainly relaxes me. That is quite a stern look. I'm not sure. They might have heard something with ears that large. They can pick up on sounds that we certainly won't be able to pick up on. Just something to mention. You know, Owen was mentioning earlier, there was with the question about the rare vegetation in Ngala, we also have one anna tree, which is the only one we know about in this section of the Timbavati. And that is also a tree, very, very large one, and something quite unusual to this particular area. Well, that kudu is still standing dead still. She hasn't moved 1 inch. You can see the ears turning slightly. Looks like there's a piece of grass coming from her mouth. Didn't even have time to finish. Imagine all the sound she'll be able to pick up when she stands like that. She's not making any movement at all, taking in everything around her. She's even got to the point where she's alerted the other one. You can see even that one's not moving at all anymore. We'll sit with these kudu a little while longer, see what it is that caught their attention, and hopefully we might hear them do that bark that I talked about earlier.
I feel we may be in the market for a green-winged pytilia. There's a massive bird party going on here. We've got waxbills, we've got emerald-spotted wood doves, there was an orange-breasted bushshrike, there's a long-billed crombeck is the last one up in the tree there, Theo. That's the one. Well spotted. Got him there. There's some crested francolins on the ground. Now, if you come down to the ground here, Theo, there's the francolin. If you just go to the left, you'll see the waxbills. And it is amongst the waxbills that we might be lucky enough to spot the green-winged pytilia. That's a female waxbill you got there, the dull-coloured one. Still searching. You can hear some arrow-marked babblers as well. There's also quite an interesting-ish bird over there. Can you see where there's movement in the grass at the bottom there, Theo? It looks like a tawny-flanked prinia. Yes, it is. That's him there on the right. That's him, yeah. Just flitting about in there. If you zoom dead straight in there, he's just behind there. Yeah, you got him. There's the tawny-flanked prinia. Not going to win any beauty contests, but nevertheless, a bird we don't see very often. And still I search for the pytilia, the nemesis of birding on camera. little growl from Theo's tummy. Oh! I'm not sure I've heard a stomach do that before. Oh! Eva, you can wear brightish colours out here. It's nonsense that you can't wear some colours. And in fact, a lot of the colours that guides and people on safari wear are pretty obvious to animals. And so the thought behind what you're asking is totally logical. Why, if animals are supposedly colourblind, can we not wear bright colours? Ooh, apparently we're going to wild dogs. Off we go.
Amazing, guys. We've just had wild dogs kill an impala outside my bedroom. It was spotted by our tech support, X, and the hyenas here. They've just had a big battle, hyena and dogs. I can only see two. They're on an impala carcass that they took from our camp. Can you believe it? I don't know which pack this is. We're right beside our bedrooms on the other side of the drainage. And the hyena got it. And we've just watched this pair come in and steal it back off the hyenas. Can you hear? I will have to call this in though, I'm afraid. Good morning, mobile stations. We've got 2 Madash beside Gallagher Pan in the drainage. Madash wild dogs in the Gallagher Pan drainage line on a kill.
Fantastic. Well done. I'd like to respond to that. I'm just at Buffelshoek Dam at the moment.
Make your way. They're rapidly finishing the kill. There's a hyena on the scene, but let me know when you get closer. Okay. It's a frenzy. You see how fast they're eating. There's no time. Any predator could come. Lion, leopard, and more hyenas. But this happened right next to our bedroom. I can't believe it. The wild dogs came into our camp and took an impala. I wonder if I can get a little bit closer, BK. What do you think?
We can try.
Are you happy here? Okay, we're happy here. I think it's an impala, everyone. Actually, no, that ear is far too big for an impala. I think it's one of the Inyalas. I'm going to turn the car a little bit, I think, just so you can see what they've got. That's not an impala. I'm sorry, doggies. And although this is messy... Oh, it's got a collar. Is that one got a collar,
Yeah,
Beaky? The one on the right? This is a Pungwe pack then, I think. It's got a collar, the one on the right. We've been trying to track these. They've now moved their den. They've got pups. They've now moved their den way into the Mangaletti. So I think this is who this is. They just had a huge standoff with a hyena. Elizabeth, yes. Wow, wild dog kill. I know. We raced and we raced and we raced. Oh, there's the hyena behind us. It's got one floppy ear. I wonder if it's June. I'll try. It's walking away. Don't worry. BK can't get it. But it's got a left floppy ear. And it had the kill, but the 2 wild dogs got it back. This is incredible. And although it looks very messy and slightly unpleasant if you're squeamish, I know, but in all fairness, wild dog kills are the quickest. They really kill their prey quick. Oh. Yeah. That is not an impala. Wow, they have absolutely devoured this. I think this is the Pungwe pack, but if any of you can confirm, please do let me know. Oops. Sorry, I do just need to stay on the radio in order to navigate other sightings in.
Chris, coming?
This is incredible. You know, this will be over so quickly and off they go. They don't have the muscle mass or the height or the sort of strength in comparison to the other predators. What they do have is speed. They're fast. Tearing this apart, there'll be nothing left, and when they do leave it, the hyena will swoop in. They won't eat bones. Wild dogs will not eat bones. Wild dogs normally only eat fresh kill. James Richard, thank you so much. Yes, I thought it was a Pungwe pack. It's the only dog that I know to be collared. And I think this could possibly be the alpha male and female. Anything could swoop in at any moment. Fresh blood carries far in the air, and they know that. They know they've not got the time. If more than one hyena approaches, let's just say 3, they would run. They would leave it. But luckily with just one hyena, then they've got the power. Must be really hungry. Flat cat is a numbers game. It's all a numbers game. If you've got a large pack of dogs, they will take on more hyenas. But I think if 2 hyenas came into this scene, I think these dogs might run. They've got pups. And 2 hyenas. Hyenas are large. When you see them in comparison to dogs, there's a massive size difference. And I personally feel if 2 were to approach, they would go. But normally they say the ratio for a predator... Oh, hyenas incoming. I think it's June. We're going to get a view in just a moment. Covered in blood. Definitely managed to get something on this carcass. And yes, normally they say the ratio is 4-to-1. But I'm not entirely sure I believe that. I watched Tandy run from just 1 hyena. I've seen Tingana also sleep for 1 hyena. Yep, it's June that's behind us, everyone. We can't give you a view right now because she's behind the car, but it's 100% June.
I think try and get hold of Alistair inside on the Manyaleki game right here.
Look how slimline they are. Look how petite they are. They've got long legs for coursing. Immediately you can tell by these long legs what kind of hunting style. Run, 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 coursing. They know there's a hyena here, they're aware of it. I just wonder how close this hyena will get. I've not seen June since I last had Chandy. It's definitely good to see June, but she's waiting. She's waiting on the scraps. There's a kudu that we have here. They're nervous. They're nervous. They know the hyena's right there. But dogs are very brave when it comes to chasing off predators. They've got safety in numbers. Normally, I'm surprised there's only 2 here right now, but normally they have safety in numbers. And out here in the wild, that's a guaranteed bet for your own safety when there's more of you. But let's not forget.
Just turned off Calico shortcut onto this little road that comes around to Calico Patch. It'll be pretty close. Can we approach? Yeah, I think just make your way straight in there. If you can hear the lighting, it's just good.
Sorry, I have to direct people in here. The dogs are still on the kill. If you just head to the pan and then take a right along the 2 track, they're just above the drainage.
Lauren, confirm head to the pan and then south or north?
We call it Galago Pan, and there's a drainage right in front of the pan. If you once you get to the pan, you should see my track marks taking a right. There's a 2 track that goes above the drainage line.
Lauren, is it on the large side of the pan or the other side of the pan towards Boogaloo?
They're on the western side, going along the drainage directly opposite our rooms. Wow. And you know, once they finish this, they'll be off so fast on their next mission. But I think because there's only 2 of them, this might be enough for their breakfast. Normally when there's a large pack, vehicles there. Normally when there's a large pack, an impala's not enough. It's a medium-sized antelope, and everyone gets a scrap. It's enough to sustain them until the next hunt. They hunt by coursing, which is running. They outrun their prey, and they take little snippets as they go. It's some very cooperative effort. And normally, once that antelope is done, they need to hunt again in order to feed all those mouths. But because there's only 2 here, I think this would have been enough. Oh, they're a little bit skittish. I just want to show you this one here. And if you just look under its belly tummy, you will see it's... hyenas in! June. It's June. Look at her floppy ear. I don't know if they'll come back. They're running off. I am really not sure these dogs will come back now. Sorry about the noise. We are surrounded by vehicles. We just need to let them pull out while we watch June enjoy her stolen, scavenged breakfast. That's something I admire about hyenas, no fear. I think the dogs are off. The other vehicle's a way to find them, but I'm not entirely sure we will. Wow, what an unexpected morning. Okay, we are going to try and relocate these dogs. I don't know how easy it will be, but I'll do my best.
We are sitting here with some white-backed vultures, which would also like to be sitting above a carcass. Unfortunately, they are not for them. What a stroke of luck to have those wild dogs. I was just looking, I don't think these guys have eaten much. Doesn't look to me like they are full in the crop. They are the white-backed vultures. And you can just see them facing into the wind. Eventually, I imagine they'll take off and go flying. It always amazes me with these birds why it is that they should choose to sit in the face of the wind. Why they wouldn't go a little bit lower down. And they just don't seem to mind. I don't know how to answer that question, Momo, I'm afraid. Drooped. Their necks drooped. They're not really, they're just kind of tucked in, I think. Is that what you mean? They're tucked in probably because of the cold. They've got long necks, which help them to feed. But when they're not feeding, then they'll tuck them in like this, which I think just makes them a bit warmer, probably. Zaid, as with most animals, and I mean you're one of those kinds of animals, you know, it depends on how much they eat. So you know that if you have one small water biscuit for breakfast, you're going to be hungry again in 10 minutes. But if you have an enormous omelette, 2 pieces of toast, a croissant, some hot chocolate, and finish it all off with an Eggs Benedict, you're not going to need to eat for the rest of the day. Now, it's very much the same with these vultures. I think that they eat a lot of small things during the course of the day, and then if they get lucky, they find a big carcass, and they'll sit on that. And if it's small things, they'll have to eat frequently, and if they get a big thing, then they won't have to eat again for a while. But I do think that they have the ability to go many days without food, and the reason for that is that they have very low energy balance. They're well insulated, and flying and gliding like they do, you know, they don't have very energy expensive flying patterns. They don't fly like a swallow does, or like a bee eater, or like a hummingbird. It's just flap, 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 find a thermal, and then they just sit on that thermal. So they can fly and move around for days using very little energy at all. So they will go a fair time without food. Sarah, they do have a sense of smell. It's not a particularly powerful sense of smell, these vultures. The vultures of the Americas have a much stronger sense of smell, and in fact they're more closely related to a bird that we get here called the marabou stork. And the marabou stork finds carcasses with smell. These guys use their sight mainly. And it's quite interesting when you think about it, because they live in an area where there are very few forests. They can get above the ground and look down into the bush and see if there are carcasses for them to perhaps feed on, whereas something like an Andean condor spends a lot of time flying over forest, and so would probably need to have a more effective sense of smell than sight. I think we'll probably carry on now and see what else Chitwa has to offer. We're at Chitwa.
Good morning, everyone. I'm still here. It is fantastic having you with Davy on camera and myself, Dylan. And no, I didn't need soap yesterday. My dog asked me if I could stay home so he could see if I could still sit and stay. It was doing some training with me. But anyway, it is fantastic having you with. It is a beautiful day out here at Tswalu Kalahari. I am exceptionally sad this morning. I don't actually have the right words for it, but I am very, very, very sad this morning. Someone very special helped me with a really good poem over the past couple of days about the shelbies, our amazing little shell duck family that we've been watching. And when we got here this morning, there are two of them missing, unfortunately, of the little ducklings. And I happened to find one on the edge of the water over here. So Davy can maybe have a look at it over here when he's finished over there. So there's Shelley and Sheldon with their little ones over there. And then over here on the edge of the water. This is not for sensitive viewers, but I'm going to show you because it is very interesting anyway. We got this little guy over here. So I'm actually going to pick it up and bring it along to show you. I think I'm going to go out to the limb and say it was probably exposure. We've had a very cold morning. My vehicle was completely iced up this morning. The whole windscreen was covered in ice. And when we've been seeing her sitting on these little ones, protecting them in very, very cold weather, you've often had that like one sticking out on the sides and not getting under. This could just be purely an exposure thing over there. But anyway, so I am absolutely distraught. But nonetheless, it is nature. These things happen. We know it happens. But yeah, what an adorable little thing. Shall I come closer, Davy? Just say when. To what? Okay. All right. Well, I know it is very sad, and I've like borderline got tears in my eyes. Yeah. But anyway, that is a South African shell duckling. Probably one of the very few that anyone will ever see in their hand like this. And you can see typical duck beak, nice and broad, for drinking in the water, for feeding in the water. And then also the feet. Those of you who haven't seen duck feet, look how big those are. See how broad they are for that paddling. And they've even got those little claws on the end. I mean, how cool is that? And you can actually see that evolutionary process of, coming from, things that were actually designed for like climbing up and down, and to think that all of this is only 6,000 years old. No, I couldn't resist that. Sorry. Yeah, no. Anyway, this is absolutely tragic, and also, I mean, the beautiful patterns on that. It actually breaks up. I know it sounds crazy because it's black and white or brown and white, and it breaks up. But what is particularly interesting about this, and this has got a really weird link to wartime. If you look at a lot of battleships during World War II, were actually painted during wartime conditions. Were actually painted not in just their standard uniform colors, but actually broken up patterns. So I think there's a thing in terms of like water and reflection, ripples, that kind of stuff. It actually helps break up the outline even of a youngster like this. So I am super, super sad about this, but it's not entirely unexpected, I guess. But anyway, it is still very sad. So yeah. All right. Yeah. No, you will be missed. But I can tell you, this little shelduck is in a happy space now, and this little one is dabbling around in some beautiful pond somewhere. That's for sure. Yes, I'm sad. Yeah. All right. Anyway. Yeah. I have no more words. Sorry, little guy. Yeah, that's nature. Yeah, that's nature, guys. And but anyway, yeah, that's the way it is. Anyway, yeah, let's go. St. Louis School has asked which animals are endangered. Where would you like me to start on that happy question? Oh, wild dogs. Head over to wild dogs. We'll chat about endangered species.
We've got the puppies, we've got the whole pack and the puppies, but I've just seen there's 3 vehicles. I may have to leave, but we've got the puppies. I didn't realize the sighting was full.
Hello. Negotiate through the bush here.
Okay, everyone, I'm going to try and follow them. They've got tiny little puppies with them. Okay, everyone, let me see how I can do this. I'm going to try and go off-road. Are you ready, BK? This is a Pungwe pack and they're puppies. I see them. The puppies have got so big already. Are you happy for me to follow? You can see them. They're all up here. They're heading to the fire break. They're heading north towards the fire break. Okay, everyone, we've lost them for now, but Londeka will be on extra special watch to make sure if we get sight of these pups again, you'll be right back with us.
Yeah, so there was a question now about what animals are endangered. And, I was, not to have a bleak morning here. But it's, animals are going endangered literally by the day. We are losing, and when I say we, I'm not talking about Tswalu specifically, I'm talking generically. We are losing habitat across the globe at a phenomenal rate. And there's a whole lot of reasons for that. So we often focus on climate change, but alien plants is probably one of the single biggest threats to biodiversity on the planet, and you don't think about it. And it just stuns me how often people go to other countries and South Africa as well, and they look at like forests and forests of greenery, and they're like, oh, this is so beautiful, and yet it's just alien plants. And people have got such a limited understanding of what constitutes a natural landscape. And I don't want to paint a huge bleak picture, because there's an insanely good or insanely big amount of amazingly good work that's being done on conserving ecosystems and habitats and species, and that takes place across the globe. And there are legions of people that are doing amazing work in that regard. But there are so many endangered species out there, and we've got endangered species on Tswalu as well. And that's why it's important that places like this exist, eh? And it's important that, and you don't need to have big reserves in order to conserve things effectively necessarily. It just depends on what species you're talking about. You can have an area, there's a lovely little butterfly in South Africa called the Brenton Blue. It's this tiny, 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 obscure little blue butterfly, and that's literally got a couple of hectares that's conserved, and that's ample for that species distribution, and the species does well, and it survives there, and that's a critically endangered butterfly. But then we've got another one called the Wakkerstrom copper that's also critically endangered. That thing hasn't been seen for years, and then a little population was located again, and there are just so many endangered species worldwide. It's just crazy, absolutely crazy. Why are we talking about all this depressing stuff this morning? I get like a flippin' baby shelduck. And I did say flipping, by the way, just for those of you who like. And I know a lot of you probably won bets on Saturday afternoon as well, so congratulations. Glad I could be of some assistance. But yeah, it is a beautiful morning, eh? And every morning you come out here, it is very, very, very special. Yeah, and you have these sad moments. That's nature. It's just, and it's also like a human thing. You get attached to things. And but anyway, we'll do a poem for the Shelbys this afternoon. So stick with us for that.
We've got the dogs. We're a little bit further out. There has been some confusion regarding this sighting, but they're here and they've got all their puppies with them. So I think if we just sit on the periphery and be very, very patient, we're going to get the first live look at the Pungwe Packs pups. Pungwe Packs pups. Try saying that fast. And they were obviously trying to feed, to come back, to give the pups some food, and sadly, June swooped in. Oh, June. It's very windy. The wind's really picked up here. Oh, my goodness. David, they do regurgitate for the pups. All adults do. It's a collective cooperative effort. All the adults will look after their young. But as for how much, I'm really not sure in terms of amount. They swallow as much as they can. They make their tummies really, really full, and then they'll start the regurgitation process. Obviously, they need food of their own for energy, and especially the lactating alpha female. But other than that, they'll just regurgitate small amounts to each pup, and there's a lot of puppies here. Now they're all moving south, so I'm not sure. I think I'm going to head forward a little bit and see what we can do. Okay, there we go. There we go. We got them. We got the puppies too. Yay! The Pungwe pack puppies, everybody! Oh, that's a full tummy you have, mister. How exciting! The whole pack is here, so it must have just been the alpha male and female that killed in our camp. How truly, truly, truly wonderful. There's another vehicle here that's probably going to follow them, so we will have to just wait for now. There we go. I think our views are over for now, everyone. I'm going to get on that radio and find out exactly what is happening. Oh, no, we've still got views. And I will stay with them as long as we can, but I do need to get on this radio to find out exactly what is happening. There seems to be a lot of vehicles that have arrived. Mikey, you are asking how many babies do wild dogs have? Now, I don't actually know how many the Pungwe pack have, believe it or not, but in general, they can have a litter of up to 21 pups. 21. But the average is normally around 7 to 10. But they can have up to 21 pups, and that's because it's a pack effort. It's a group effort, it's coordinated, and everybody contributes. So I'm going to get on the radio, find out what's happening with the vehicle movement, and hopefully we'll be able to get a little bit closer to these puppies and give you some wonderful views. I know you can see a sleepy one here. Okay, so fingers crossed, everyone. We'll be able to get back and see them soon.
Well, seeing wild dogs on the move is certainly a very, very exciting event. And over here, there's lots of excitement as well. Even though it might not look like that at first, and if we have a close look, we've just come across the Pride of Lions, and the trackers have found them here. They followed the tracks all the way. You can see there's a little bit more, well, the rest of them spread out. Those look like the 3 younger ones. And they're right on the edge of one of the large watering holes we have in the eastern part of Ngala. Now this is pretty much the best spot to have lions, especially on a day like this with the wind blowing. You can see some of these young lionesses, like that white one over there at the back, right in the middle. She's got her head up and she's intently staring at something. One in front of her as well. And then the rest couldn't be bothered at all. There was a male impala, or an impala ram, that just made its way down here and got the surprise of his life. And you can see that young lioness is still staring straight at that direction. She's watching every move. You can see as the animals are moving, she's moving her head a little bit just to get a better view. Now it's a very, very windy area where they are. They're right on the northern edge of the watering hole, and oh, now even the lioness have got their head up. Maybe something drew her attention as well. It might just be the wind as well. Every now and again they'll put their head up to have a look. She's looking the other way. I'm sure she's aware of the impalas to her back at this point. But she's staring straight into the wind at the moment. So she'll be able to pick up on anything coming from that side, and that would more than likely be their best chance of a hunt if they would attempt one. For now they're just trying to stay low and stay out of the wind. But over here we have the best chance for some excitement that might happen. Animals will come down later in the morning. Since it's a cool morning, they probably won't come down early morning, or we might not see something in the next 15-20, but a little bit later on they might move down to come and have a drink. And then the lions will be here to surprise them. You can see that's the young male. You can see his mane has just started to grow, blowing in the wind there. And some cuts on the ear. There's another one that's just picked their head up to have a little scan. She's probably checking where the rest of them are, or maybe if there might be any movement on the far side. Rosemary, I agree with you. Never ever get tired of these scenes. Especially not something like this. When there's intent in their eyes, you can see they focus, the ears are flat. To keep that, or make them blend in better, it's to hide that classical cat-shaped head, which most of these animals, like the impalas and the zebra in this area, might know exactly what that looks like. And with the wind blowing this morning, even though they look like they might be asleep, they, like I said earlier, they're just hiding or laying down to get out of the cool wind, but they are still very much awake. And with the amount of lions around here, all facing different directions, they'll definitely pick up on something. The two younger ones looking off to our left towards where those impalas were earlier, there were some alarm calls coming from that side, so I'm sure those impalas know about them. They're just carefully watching them. You can see it looks like their interest is lost as well. Now this morning we only have a couple of them here. Don't see any of the big males here, and it looks like some of the females might be missing as well. Well, I did see one of the lionesses get up and move earlier as we arrived. She moved out of our sight at this point, but maybe it was a weak attempt at trying to loop around and maybe even try to go for one of those impalas. But then also again, all of these ones with their heads up like these three, they're all young lions or young lionesses. So they're still getting into the hunting. They've only just started participating actively within the hunt, although they go after smaller creatures at this point to supplement their diet. The big animals like the buffalo, the zebra, they've already started practicing their skills. And I'd say probably the first one to have would be general interest in just watching those animals to know which would be the best approach to take, or what would be the possible scenario. Now I'm pretty sure as soon as the larger lionesses, one of them gets up, then we know that there's a real possibility for a hunting attempt. But as you can see at this point, the larger lions are all still flat down. Doesn't seem to be interested in anything at this point. Some birds making a noise off in the far end, and the young white male has just picked up his head. He's finally decided to pay attention to something nearby. Amanda, I am not entirely sure what that question was. If maybe it can be repeated again. Amanda, I'm sure if they could talk they would say thank you. Happy World Lions Day to them. I was not even aware that it is Happy World Lion or World Lion Day today. That is, and what a surprise and what a fortunate event for us to be spending some time with lions on Lion Day. I'm sure if they could, they would have shown their excitement. But at this point, I think they have more important matters to worry about, like resting.
Davy and I, we just still on our mission to find these goshawks, or the goshawk nest actually. So we're going to keep on doing that. Apparently the meerkats only came out yesterday at 9:30, and that's because this very, very cold weather that's moving through now. So I think I'll keep tabs on the meerkat situation with Rebecca, our meerkat habituator. If I see there's a chance of them coming out earlier, we'll go there. Otherwise, we'll just keep moving and see if we can find these goshawks. But I just couldn't help stopping at this beautiful giraffe sighting over here. It is just so lovely. You've got a number of youngsters there. And a big bull. But just with that lovely side light with the dark background of the hills. Oh, it's beautiful. And we were talking about endangered species earlier, and the problem with endangered species is this, or the thing that I've got with it is, often people start worrying about them when they're endangered, but a giraffe is a wonderful example of a species that's now regarded as vulnerable. Their giraffe numbers across Africa are dropping very, very, very rapidly. We've had something like a 30% decrease in giraffe numbers over the past 20 years. I stand to correction on the exact stats there, but their numbers are in steep decline. So they're not regarded as endangered yet. There are one or two species that are of giraffe, like Rothschilds and that. But otherwise, most people to parks in Africa think, oh, giraffe, yeah, they're kind of like all over. Well, they're not all over, and their numbers are declining. And yet, they're not regarded as endangered. And there's a brilliant book that was written years ago called How the Tiger Lost Its Stripes by a very, very good author called Peter Matheson. And he poses a question in one of the chapters saying, you know, a tiger is a tiger is a tiger. And pretty much what he's asking there is, if you have a population of endangered animal and there are 1,000 of them left, do you worry about them half as much as when you've got a population where you've only got 500 left? You know, or if you've got 500, do you worry about them half as much as when you've got 250 left? You know, it's like these degrees of concern for endangered species, or what constitutes an endangered species, and not just globally, but the same species can be very common in one area, very uncommon somewhere else. And why that is a big challenge for conservation is it really draws on resources. And, you know, do you look at pooling your resources around a focal point, or do you split it up and say, okay, well, let's try conserve every single individual animal out there? It's a very, very tough question. And one of the species that our colleagues have been looking at this morning really highlights that is African wild dogs, Cape hunting dogs, whatever you want to call them, where, you know, the challenge is not the dogs themselves. The dogs know how to breed. Wild dogs know how to mate, they know how to breed, and they know how to hunt. You know, and yet we get so worked up about these tiny little populations. Well, it's not the dogs that are the problem. It's us that are the problem. We're not giving them enough space, and you need more reserves, bigger reserves with wild dog populations in order to conserve the species. You know, and often there's no rocket science behind it. It becomes more of a socio-political issue rather than an individual species. Most organisms on the planet know how to breed. That's not the problem, and humans are a particularly good example of that. It's you know, what are the parameters that you want to work within on a species? Anyway, that's just some random thoughts for the morning. But I think we're just going to keep on bumming and see if we can find these goshawks. March has asked, how much food do giraffes eat in a day? I don't have the figures with me. I can look it up. But you can look at about between 5 and 6% of their body weight per day, depending on what they're feeding on in it. You know, and again, don't look at me and say, yeah, but they eat leaves. Okay, because there's different quality leaves, there's different species of tree that they'll feed on, there's new growth, there's old growth, there's a whole lot of different things over there, factors that'll determine just the nutrient, the energy intake, as opposed to just nutrients. It's the energy intake that they're getting. So if they're eating, like if it's in the middle of summer, there's tons of blossoms on these acacias, which is going to be happening soon, they would actually need to eat less than they would in the middle of winter when there's very little around.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
So those are two of the die-hard ones at the moment. The wind over here has picked up quite drastically. The whole area has been cooling down quite a lot. The wind blowing straight over this large body of water here. It feels a little bit colder. We're also up against a small sort of a bank at this point. So most of these lions have put their heads straight down, except these three younger ones. They're still curious. They're still checking in that direction that the impalas were earlier. I'm sure they're aware that the animals might come from that side to drink. But if I have a look at them, they look pretty bored at this point. Look like they're waiting for something to happen. And also, the young male's just put his head up. And one of the large lionesses. I think it might just be because of the wind that suddenly, that gush that came through. That young lioness in the middle, she's had her head up the whole time. It looks like she's slowly but surely falling asleep there. She's got a very large chip out of her ear. St. Louis School, is it dangerous driving near the wild animals? It depends. It is not, I wouldn't consider it to be dangerous. I think it might be in some instances be risky, but in this particular area, these animals are used to vehicles and they are used to people driving with their vehicles through these areas. This particular lion pride, especially this lioness that we're looking at now, she has had quite a few encounters over her life with people and vehicles, both within the private reserve in Gala, and then also within the Kruger Park. Now, when they do encounter people, most of the times people don't get out of their vehicles, well, hopefully all the time. And when you stay in the vehicle, they get used to that behavior. They know the vehicle's moving around and driving around don't ever bother them, and therefore they don't bother the vehicles. So I'd say it is pretty safe driving around here, unless you make a foolish mistake or unless you don't pay attention. And there are certain animals that need a healthy amount of respect, like the elephants, for instance. And if one keeps your distance and you don't interfere directly with their behavior, then you should be very safe. I see there's a bit of grooming going on. This young male off on the side is licking his... It looks like he's rubbing his tongue up against his teeth. Now it might be to get some of that fur that he's just licked out from his coat off his tongue. Now it looks like he's licking his paw. I'm pretty sure, and not long from now, he might get up and try and go lay down in the middle of the rest of the bundle of the lions for a little bit of warmth. Mole. The white lions do definitely stand out against the summer green grass. But if they are at a disadvantage, to an extent I'd say probably yes. They do stand out, but then again, not all animals see like we people see. So the contrast might not be as clear between the green and the white. Most of these animals don't see the same color spectrum as we do, and that might mean that they perceive it a little bit different. So in terms of hunting, there's no real evidence that suggests that they are at a disadvantage. Personally, I do know that when we drive into an area and at a distance we see the pride of lions out in the open, then often you do notice the white ones quite clearly, or much easier than you do the rest of them. But when everything is in a sort of a grey scale, then I think it might be a little bit trickier. Also, any lion that would be a good hunter, one would think that they would be well enough adapted to use their environment and the cover that they need to such an extent that they wouldn't be seen. A lot of them's got their heads up now. I think they're probably thinking about moving either closer to each other, but with a little bit of hope, just scanning the banks of this watering hole to see if there might be something coming down for a drink. Jerry, as far as I understand, the colors that lions see is it's basically in kind of like a grayscale spectrum. They don't really see colors as we know colors. They basically perceive things in black and white, and they mainly make out shapes very well. and then they pick up on movement very well. Their eyes are designed differently than ours. The cells in our own eyes are designed to perceive color very well, where towards the edges of our eyes we do have certain cells that pick up on movement very well, where with the lions those type of cells are more prevalent within their eyes. So they're basically adapted for great night vision. So in the night when it's dark, the little bit of ambient light from the moon and the stars lets it up for them, and they are able to perceive shapes a little bit better than we can after the dark. You can see in about 6 times lower light conditions than we can. But during the day it's not the same as ours in terms of color.
We just ambling along looking for this goshawk nest, and one was actually spotted in this area yesterday, carrying what seemed like nesting material. So it had some grass in its talons. What can happen sometimes though, and we've spoken about it before, on these goshawks, because they are such diverse raptors in terms of their food that they're going for, they will go for anything. They'll go for francolin, guinea fowl, other birds, even ducklings, rodents, anything like that. So what I've seen on a number of occasions as well, they go in, they land, they're chasing something, they land, they grab it, and if it's something small like a mouse in some grass, they'll actually pick that mouse up with a whole lot of stuff in their talons as well. So that can look like nesting material, but we are in the nesting season now, so I'm pretty confident that what they saw was nesting material, and that's why I just want to cover some ground and see if we can locate that, because then I really want to build on this narrative of having the ducklings, the meerkats, the goshawks, everyone kind of in a central area, and we know there's a wildcat out here. So we'll just see what we get, and it's very cool, very exciting that you're with us doing this and having the patience to do it with us.
Magnificent camera work here from Theodore, and what he's looking at is the lappet-faced vulture, somehow conspiring to fly into the wind. Most impressive. There was a swift there as well. You see the little swift dodging around with him. That's so cool. That's really cool. I will show you a picture of that particular bird, which of course is the only luck that I've had today. Today has been extremely quiet. I think on account of the fact of the wind. On account of the fact of the wind. Good grief, I can't speak anymore. On account of the wind. All right. Let's have a look here. So what you can see is that we were looking at the bird that is indicated by my finger there, a lappet-faced vulture, and he's the biggest vulture we get, and that's what he looks like when he's had his head chopped off by the artist, I mean. Cool, hey? I don't know where he's going. It looked like he was going to land here actually for a second, and I thought maybe there would be a kill around, but there isn't. So on we shall go and find something else.
Just have a look at this young male's mane in the wind. The wind's picked up even more now, and that's why a lot of them have their heads up at this point. You can also hear some oxpeckers coming in from afar. Might be an indication that there's something around, maybe some wildebeest or giraffe. Maybe some zebra. Who knows? You can see they all, or more of them, have their heads up at this point. Some of the older lionesses as well, so they're also thinking of maybe even making a move. They keep staring up in the same direction, even though they change. You can see that one, the young white male, he doesn't really have a clue what's happening at this point. Whenever we get here, he always seems to be the one enjoying his sleep the most. And he's still looking in the direction the impalas were quite a while ago. Now he's looking in the same direction as the rest. Rob, at what age do male lions begin to show mane? Now that, from my own experience, I've noticed that it differs quite a lot. If you look at this young guy here, he's not even 2 years old. He's on the verge of 2 years, but he's already starting to show some mane, and he's white. You can see some longer hair on the chest, looks like even on the shoulders, and right at the top of the head between the ears, and around where his sideburns are. Now, in my opinion, for most of the lions I've noticed in these parts, that is quite a young age to show this much mane already. But I have noticed some young males, even from about just after a year to a year and a half. You can see some of the mane start to come out, especially on the chest. And then with others, like that young male over there, he's already 4 years old, and we're only really starting to see his mane developing now. Up until the last 6 months, he didn't really have any mane except a little bit on his chest and on his sideburns. So I guess it depends on the animal itself. It depends on their genes, it depends on what their father's manes look like, it depends on their testosterone levels. So there's a lot of things that can influence that. So I don't think that there's any specific age, but usually from about 2 years onwards you'll start to see the development of manes with most male lions.
So unfortunately, everyone, we had to leave the dog sighting. I have my sad face on right now, but you don't need to see that because you're looking at a beautiful male waterbuck and his beautiful bum circle. BK also has a sad face on right now. But just to let you know, we have Mark on camera right now. Mark will be with us for the next few days, and he is the one filming this glorious waterbuck. Now this is a dominant male waterbuck, and he set up his territory around the dam cam area. So Vuotela Dam is his domain, but unfortunately he never seems to have any ladies, which is rather sad. But he enjoys eating a lot, and I think that is, well, that's enough to make him happy. Waterbuck are grazers, so they graze the grass, and although it's winter, there's actually still a lot of choice around right now because summer was so giving. So I think this waterbuck is more than happy that he does not have lady friends, but I'm sure one day those lady friends will come. So they're not entirely selective. You get some herbivores that are really specific in which grasses they eat, and then you get some that are just really not specific. Anything goes. They're hungry. And with waterbuck, they actually have very specialized digestive systems inside. And the digestive system is equipped to deal with lots of sort of roughage, if you like, and can pull out all the nasty things that they eat and soak up all the protein, nutrient-rich, enjoyable grasses. So the waterbuck will try to target the most palatable grasses, but if it's a really harsh winter, it's maybe been a drought year, then they can digest a lot of different food. And if it gets really, really dry and the winter is very severe, you will find them browsing, but that's a last resort. They are primarily grazers, and they will go for the most nutrient-rich grasses around. But grass actually has a lower moisture content than browse. Leaves contain more moisture and more water than grass does. So you'll find these species that browse more don't need to drink as much. And you find those species that graze more do need to drink. And when it comes to waterbuck, they do need to drink quite a lot to help that digestion process. You can see he's chewing right now, making me think of my banana and peanut butter. And the sort of end result of drinking so much water is that they have wetter droppings. So when you look at some waterbuck droppings, I actually might go on a little mission to try and find some for you. That's exciting. And you'll see that they're a lot wetter than other antelope droppings, or other ruminants, shall we say. They're moist and the pellets tend to stick together. That's a really easy way to identify waterbuck droppings because they drink so much water due to their diet. So everything's connected. BK, are you excited to go and look for some waterbuck droppings? Yes, okay, that's our next mission. So it's sad that we had to leave the dogs, but we managed to see the Pungwe pack and all their pups, and that's the first time, so that is exciting. But please don't forget to ask us questions, everyone. We are live, and even although I'm not with the dogs right now, I'm more than happy to chat wild dogs with you all. I love them. I think Dylan just mentioned earlier as well that they're incredibly endangered. They are Africa's second most endangered carnivore, next to the Ethiopian wolf. The Ethiopian wolf is very endangered, with only 450 adults remaining in the wild. The wild dog populations are much higher than that, but they're still incredibly low. So if you do have questions, more than happy to answer them. Okay, let's try and see if we can go on our dropping search. And wish us luck. We may have some wet droppings the next time you see us.
Have a look. That lioness just quickly turned her head around. I think this wind at the moment is so strong that it's really getting a reaction out of these lions. You can see some determination there. They're scanning frantically along the banks of the watering hole. I think there's a renewed energy within them now. I wouldn't want to be anything that decides to come for a morning drink at this stage. They also know that this wind will count in their favor. Now it's coming from more or less the direction this lioness is looking into, so she's got her face straight in towards the wind. So anything coming from the direction that she's looking at, and she'll be downwind, which means with this watering hole and the amount of lions here, they'll be able to sneak around and they'll stand a real chance of getting to hunt something. They do look a little bit hungry. It doesn't look like they've eaten yesterday. I know it looks like they had something small, but it doesn't look like all of them had enough to eat. It always amazes me. It's usually the lionesses that's the first ones to pick up their heads, the first ones to start looking around. And I think it might be because they know that they need to feed the younger ones. Anna Marie, the white female, certainly has such a sweet face. At the moment we can't see it, and she doesn't seem too bothered about showing her sweet face, but she certainly does have a sweet face. She's a very beautiful young lioness, and so is her sister. That little one right there in the middle of the young male and the large lioness. Elizabeth, both of these white lions do not have the same parents. The older one, so there's 4 older lionesses, 2 old ones, which are those 2 that we can see there, and then 1 younger one. In fact, no, sorry, the one off to the left is one of the younger ones. So out of the 2 younger lionesses, that one off to the left there and her sister, it is she that is the mother of the oldest white lion, or the young male white one. Then the white female, her mother is one of the 2 older lionesses, the 2 original lionesses within this pride. And interestingly enough, from where I am, I can't clearly see whether that is her mother there or if it's her sister. But we do know that she and her sister is the first litter that lioness has successfully raised up until this age.
From waterbuck to zebra. We've just come across some zebra, and look at this one's tail, or absence of it, should we say. You see that little stump? Something's happened. It's still moving. But something's happened to the tail. Oh, what a shame. I wonder. I mean, we could only speculate. Has it been bitten off? Has it been stamped on? Now, it leaves the more sensitive areas a little bit exposed. And what a why did I just say giraffe? A zebra's tail swooshes from side to side, helps just to protect those sensitive areas, avoid insects, flies. But unfortunately, this individual, that little stump is really not long enough. And it's not really fulfilling the function that it should do, which is very sad for this individual in particular, but seems to be surviving and thriving, grazing. It's a very, very narrow stripe. Looks like a male, but I haven't managed to do a genital check yet. Yes, we have a boy who's missing his tail. There's another one following closely behind. Now, the wind is howling, as I'm sure you can all imagine, and this makes animals nervous. So you see the waterbuck was standing on the dam wall, so he had a good vantage point. It would not surprise me. We're going to move forward, Mark. It wouldn't surprise me if they could hear the dogs. Ooh, ooh, ooh. that will make them even more nervous. So a lot of the animals will either be hiding in the thickets or they will be standing on the dam wall. Okay, I think we've lost our zebra. We're going to bumble around and see what else we can find.
This is going to be super exciting. So we looked at these briefly the other day. These are the buds, the flower buds on the Acacia mellifera, or now it's called a Senegalia mellifera. You know, the old Acacia genus, the ones with the hook thorns are Senegalias, the ones with the straight thorns are Vachelias. But we're not going into that now. But I wanted to show you these buds and how they're developing. In a month's time, probably even 3 weeks, this place is going to be transformed into an absolute wonderland. And the specific name on the species, mellifera, actually refers to honey. And that's why you've got a whole lot of species. If you look at a honey badger, in fact, Mellivora capensis, which means the honey eater from the Cape. Capensis, Cape, and Melli refers to honey, Mellivora. A honey bee is Apis, mellifera. It all refers to honey. So these plants, although the flowers aren't going to last very long, it'll be about 3 weeks at the most. But they are super, super, super important during that time for a lot of species that rely on nectar out here. But yes, this place is going to be absolutely beautiful. You're not even going to recognize it. Every single one of these bushes is going to be covered in cream, white, or pink flowers. The standard color is a cream. That's a cream variety. But then you get these ones that are almost snow white with a bit of green on them, and then you get these beautiful pink, bright pink ones, almost like cherry blossom pink. So this is really, really fun. This is really exciting. And I just wanted to pop in and just show you just how fast these little buds are developing now. So just this environment, this landscape is going to be altering before our eyes. So cool. Animal life says it's so wonderful. Totally. I can't agree with you more. It really, and again, this is like, not to get like all philosophical here, but what we saw, that incredibly sad sighting with that little duckling this morning, and what we're seeing now, it's just like whole cycle of life. You know, there's things out here that are getting killed, there's things that are dying, there's things that are being attacked, there's things that are, but yet at the same time, all of that goes to create this incredible regeneration of life every single day out in these environments, and that in itself is so fantastic. No, it's just how these systems are put together and how they function, and the intricacies and all these like different interactions, and it's just infinite. The diversity is infinite.
You can see that young lioness is checking out the rest of the pride at this point. Ooh, and some birds flying up ahead. It's quite an interesting thing about lions. I often find vulture, not just any vulture, a hooded vulture. And that vulture, in this particular area, that's the vulture we look out for, as well as the lions. I find it quite interesting. I've often found that they sit and watch. If they're out in a clearing and there's lots of birds or near the riverbed, they often sit and they watch the vultures fly over any large birds. But I found that it seems that they can distinguish between certain birds, with vultures especially. And often looks like they follow the hooded vultures especially. Over here, when you find a large roost of whiteback vultures, it might just be all the birds from the nearby area that goes and they go and roost on a dead tree somewhere near water, out in the open where they might catch the sun. But the hooded vultures, to us, they're a more sure sign that something might have died. So like us, the lions also watch the vultures. And the other way around, when the vultures come and they fly over an open space, they spot a pride of lions down there, they often come down just to come and investigate, to have a little look, see what's happening. Maybe there might be some scraps of something that the lions might have killed during the night and finished off. I couldn't clearly see, but I think that vulture just came to have a drink of water. Now, not a few minutes ago, there was an impala that walked to the water's edge, quite far off from here on the opposite side of the watering hole from where the lions are, and that piqued a little bit of interest. But not too much. As you can see, that young lioness is looking in the direction from where the impala was. She's got her ears up, but no. Devon, do the white lion's white fur affect their hunting? Now, I have not really seen the white lions, these ones specifically, try and hunt on their own, except chasing small things like hares and mongoose. And in that case, it's more of a playful thing. But in large hunts where they play an important part, at this stage they're still too young to play an important part, so I haven't really seen them with their fur affect the hunts in a great extent. They usually hide off on the side and watch. They've just started joining in on hunts, and occasionally when they sit out in the open, I have noticed that some animals do spot them from a distance. But that's also because them, including all the other younger ones, are right out in the open where everything can see them. As far as I know, there's no conclusive evidence that points to them being disadvantaged. But I do think it plays a little bit of a role within their ability to hunt successfully or not.
Here we have found some animals finally after, gosh, about 45 minutes an hour of driving around with nothing but grass blowing strongly in the wind. Some wildebeest we have. And some impala, of course. And they are tolerating this, what can only be described as foul wind, with admirable fortitude. This is like being at the coast. I feel like I'm back at Kariga Game Reserve. Anyway, there it is. We haven't found so much as a track of a predator, nor have we found sign of an elephant, a beef. But surely our luck will not remain like this for the rest of time. Quite a nice picture there of the Lowveld stretching out towards the west. The view that the wildebeest and impala have. And on a normal day or on a day without a wind like this, you'd be able to see the mountains. But there's just too much dust in the air today. This herd seems to be pretty reliable in these clearings, and so I'm sure we'll spend a little bit more time with them in the coming weeks.
Yes. Dog. Okay, we got a beautiful little animal here, but I'm not going to tell you what it is until it reveals itself. Ah, look at that. Look at that. It's a hare. Look at that. Oh my goodness, what a gorgeous sighting. And he's just been cleaning himself. I do apologize. I'm going to try to get one photo. I'm not even. Yes, how quick was that? He's still there. He's still there. He is right behind the vehicle. That gives you a good idea of just how close this little guy is to us. So this is a scrub hare. And I think one of our colleagues got a leopard or something carrying one around the other day. We've actually, when Jean-Ray was here, we actually got a cheetah. That female with the two cubs that had actually caught one of these on a game drive. I'm not even gonna move the vehicle. Oh man. Yes, this is like so. Okay, I'm gonna go forward a fraction. Just give me a second. If it runs off, because I mean that is literally 3 meters from behind the vehicle. We're just gonna keep watching it. I'm just gonna pull forward a fraction, and if it moves, it moves. But this is quite a fun sighting. Oh wow, that worked perfectly. What an animal, eh? Oh wow. I'm absolutely amazed that when we drove past, I think that's exactly where it was lying, David. Neither of us saw it. We just saw it trot away from the side of the road. And then it made a little loop around, groomed itself as you saw, then came and went back to exactly the same spot. So I think that's its lie up for the day. And but it was just interesting to note that even even while we were sitting here, that animal actually had the courage to go around and come straight back to its place that it feels it's safest in. Look at the size of those eyes. And I just want to mention very briefly about those eyes there. These animals are direct release is just asked, what is the difference between a rabbit and a hare? So one of the primary differences in terms of their ecology is one is precocial and one is ultrical. In other words, hare on the babies. So when these little ones are born, okay, they are what we call precocial. So they will actually just have their youngsters, their leverets or their kits inside little clumps of bush, long grass, that kind of stuff where they're well protected. But literally within a couple of days of being born, they can get up and they get going. So they got their eyes open, they covered in hair, they're ready to go. Rabbits, on the other hand, are ultrical. In other words, they are born completely blind, completely helpless, and typically in what we call warrens. There's a joke about that. What do you got to call a guy with a whole lot of rabbits living inside him? Warren. No, anyway, but yeah, so we do have true rabbits on Tswalu as well. We've got a very, very special little species called a Smith's red rock rabbit, named after my father, and they live up in the mountains, so you won't see them out on these plains. But yeah, that's one of the key differences. And then rabbits typically can just like hop. Like imagine a normal bunny that people have at home, and again, maybe yeah, I won't go there. But if you've got a rabbit at home, you'll notice how that hops typically. These little guys can actually sprint. They can run really, really fast. But what I wanted to mention here very, very briefly is if you look at that gorgeous white ring around the eyes, these animals do tend to be primarily nocturnal. And that would, again, that white ring would indicate, same as we say with leopards and lions, all these things, that helps with light gathering ability of the eye and enhances the nocturnal image. And yet, where we are parked here is about 200 meters away from where we had that beautiful little sengi sighting the other day. And remember, we pointed out on that sengi that's exactly the same white ring around the eye. The thing there is that sengi is diurnal. It is only active in the day. So, I think we just accept what we read and what we hear as gospel truth. But very often there's little subtle things out there at play, or there actually hasn't been proper research done on it, and we kind of like jump to these conclusions and latch on to something. So, well, if it's got a white ring around the eye, therefore it must help with its sight in the evening. But I don't think that's always the case. And I think very often patterns and markings on faces of animals are more visual cues, as opposed to just being a physical benefit, a physiological adaptation for the animal. It could just be behavioral things. But wow, this is a beautiful sighting, eh? This is so cool. Here today, gone tomorrow. It's a bit like me. There's actually lots of rabbit jokes. And hare joke, but I think I'll keep them to myself.
Wild Earth relies on support from viewers like you to carry on broadcasting our daily live shows. A small donation goes a long way in helping us on our mission to connect the world with nature. Please visit our support page to see how you can help and become part of the Wild Earth family.
We have come to a little woodland area, which I think is probably a more sensible place for any animal to be right now, because it's a little bit more sheltered. And there, behind all the trees, are some zebras and some impalas. Oh, movement fantastic. You'll notice how an impala will stay away from a zebra. It's unlike something like a wildebeest and impala relationship where, they'll get really close to each other, sometimes almost even touching, just in the way of going about the business of the day. But zebra are known to be particularly unpleasant, and the impala will give them a wide berth. Should we go forward? Being given silent instructions by Theo, who's not learned that he's allowed to just smack me over the head when he wants me to move forward. How's that? All right? Beautiful little sighting, this. Sorry, I went silent because I was listening to the Game Drive radio. Those wild dogs are still around, but not in a place where we can go and see them, unfortunately. It's a really kind of strange August weather, this. Now, many of you, of course, will have heard various stories about the camouflage of zebras. And you can see there that the white and black really actually make them pretty obvious. It doesn't hide them at all. And in fact, if you looked at the impala between those two zebra, it's much better hidden than the zebra are. So that coloration continues to vex people, and the best kind of theory we have at the moment, quite possibly, is the fly theory, that flies don't like sitting on that kind of stripy pelage. And there have been some really interesting experiments that have shown that various kinds of parasites will avoid that sort of striping. So maybe that helps them to survive a bit. Then we were asked a question a little bit earlier, just before the wild dog sighting, about colour blindness. And I forget who it was that asked it, and it was a really good one, about why it is that we have to wear neutral colours in the bush if animals are colourblind. There are two aspects to that question. The first is that animals are not entirely colourblind. A lot of them are red colourblind, or I don't know if that's the correct term. They only see in shades of blue and green, and it's why that reddish colour of the impala is so effective here, because a lion or a wild dog or a hyena is not going to see that colour as easily as you and I can. We've got much better colour vision than a lot of animals out here. But they don't see in grayscale, they don't see in black and white. They just are colourblind in so much as they don't have red rods, in their, red cones. Is it rods and cones? Rods of colour, yes. Red cones, which allow them to see red colour. So they only see blue and green. Now, what that means is that really, if you were to wear something red in the bush, it wouldn't make much of a difference unless it was a reflective material. Now what happens is a lot of kind of reddish colors or orange colors or yellow colors are more reflective than a dull color, than a dull blue or a dull green or a dull gray. That's why you don't want to wear a bright color. It's not so much the color. Ooh, well spotted, Theo. Got some white-backed vultures up ahead, just taking off as it warms up. And it's not so much because of the color, but because of the reflection. And the worst color you can wear out here is bright white. And a lot of the khaki colors that tourists and guides wear are very pale khaki, almost white, and they are much more easily, or those colors are much easier to see than, say, a dull red or a dull orange color like the impala are wearing. And you can see when you watch those zebras, you can see that the white is really clear to see. It's the most obvious color moving through there because it's the most reflective. They do start to blend a little bit as they get into the woodland, but in bright light like this, really easy. Much more difficult when it's dusk, and probably even more so when it's completely dark. And it really is quite amusing when you land at an airport in a safari area like in Hoedspruit or Nelspruit or somewhere like that, and you see people getting out of the aeroplanes in the no doubt very expensive safari gear that they've purchased from some outdoor house or outdoor warehouse. It's amusing because it's totally unnecessary, especially at 5-star lodges, and B, it's often entirely pointless because the colors are so light and the material from which the clothing is made is so reflective that they may as well be wearing luminous morph suits. Sarah, some bright colours can attract insects, yes. So, and some dull colours will attract insects. They attract tsetse flies in areas where they catch them and are trying to eradicate them with blue plastic. I've definitely seen red colours and yellow attracting flies and bees. But I don't think I'm not sure that it would attract them enough for it to make a huge difference.
Guys, we got a jackal that's checking rodent burrows. This little guy's walking along checking burrow after burrow after burrow. So he's on the hunt, he's on the prowl for small mammals to eat. How awesome is that? For those of you who not familiar with the species, this is called a black-backed jackal, where some of our colleagues are working. They've actually got another one as well called a side-striped jackal. I think this is one of my all-time favorite animals. This and an octopus. But we don't get octopus here, unfortunately. But I do like an octopus. Oh, wow, what a sighting that was. And so relaxed. And literally he just came trotting along, and he was literally just going from burrow to burrow to burrow. And it just shows what we're doing with trying to find wildcats. And we still want to find more wildcats for you. I don't like doing these like once-off sightings. But same as a wildcat, he's going and checking individual burrows. So it just shows these animals that they're not out here just like randomly hoping to encounter something. When they're hungry, they'll have a set plan. Say, okay, I know there's a burrow over there, let me go check that. I know there's some down there, let me go check those. And that jackal will have a deep knowledge of his territory. And that's so exciting to see. Like that hare knows where he's been safe. A jackal like this will snatch a hare if it had half a chance.
So over there we can see that there's quite a few animals that come down for a late morning drink. Some zebra, wildebeest, there were some earlier as well, and the impalas are moving off. They just have a quick drink. See, animals are always nervous once they get close to the water. Like that zebra with a short tail. And this has just changed the behavior of the lions completely. Now, we saw that earlier there were some wildebeest walking up in the same direction where those animals are. I am sure that they're moving up towards clearings on that side where they probably spent the night and they're probably feeding there during the day. Now, these lions, you can see they've mostly put down their heads at this point. They're trying to look as inconspicuous as possible because they know that these animals are going to start coming down more and more. And they're just watching them. There's downwind from these animals. They are in the perfect position. The only problem for them at this point, look at that young lioness. She's the one. She's already readied herself. She's moved into the shade of the shrub. And she will more than likely be the one looping around to try and cut them off, or at least chase them in the direction of the rest. She's an extremely good huntress, and even though she's the youngest out of the large lionesses, she's recently been playing a big part. Hilton, on average, a lion's kill rate is not very good, to be honest. In this particular area, from the statistics that they've gathered over a number of years, it seems to be more or less about 2 out of 9 times. Now, why 2 out of 9 times and why they have chosen that specific amount, I do not know, but it roughly comes down to about a third of the times, which is not very excellent, but it also depends on the pride of lions. Some lions are more successful hunters than others. Like, see, even this male, even though he's not at his full capabilities due to a severe injury he's had to deal with over the last 6 months, you can see he's in hunting mode. He's put his head straight down. He knows that he's a little bit more visible with his mane and his size, and he's just carefully watching those animals moving. Now all of those animals are at this point unaware of these lions, and when they move up towards those clearings, the lions know exactly where they're going, so they're watching every move carefully. And as you can see, there's still some wildebeest standing there. You can see they're looking around. They are wary, but they don't seem to have any idea that this pride of lions are here. You can see it's even looking into the wind, probably making sure that there's no trouble coming from that side, where they should be looking to their back. Now at the moment, the problem these lions face is the distance. From here to there is quite far, and it'll take a long time for them to loop around. So as these animals move off back towards where they came from, there might be a move with these lions to actually start and follow and move their position themselves.
We've managed to find another of the lion's eternal enemies, the buffaloes. As you can hear, it's nice and windy here at Pridelands, and we actually found these buffaloes' tracks a bit earlier, and lots of buffalo dung, very fresh. And of course we found the fresh buffaloes, which was pretty cool. And these are a couple of old buffalo bulls, the Duggar Boys, as they're sometimes known, just feeding their way slowly up this road towards Indlovu Dam at our eco-training camp, so I suppose they'll probably come and drink there a little bit later as it gets warmer. The wind is icy cold, so these buffaloes are not straying into the shade for the moment. They are staying nicely in the sun, where they can heat up their dark fur and skin. We're wondering if these were the same two buffaloes that chased, or they had the standoff with the lions a few days ago, but we're not sure. To take us a bit closer to this buffalo, just to get a better visual. We've been up and down the reserve this morning. In fact, about half an hour ago, we did find a leopard. Unfortunately, it was not a very relaxed leopard, and it moved off into a drainage line, so we didn't get to get it on film, which was a real shame. And we tried for ages and ages to go off-road to try and see if we can relocate it, but it's hiding in a deep thicket, so we're going to try again this afternoon for that leopard. There's 3 buffaloes here. 1, 2, 3. I don't know. This one is now off away from us down the slope. 2 buffaloes are the sticks. Buffaloes always like to be in the sticks these days. Never really coming out with buffalo herd into our waterhole yesterday. What was very interesting was they put it out dam last night, just after drive at about 6:05. We were all about, Gert and I were taking all of our equipment off, and there one of the students came bounding up to us. Leopard at the dam, they said. It was a very, very awesome sighting. It's a shame we couldn't show you all, but we got these buffaloes for now. You can see they're just going to lumber across the road now, these big, strong beasts. The oxpeckers, of course, always with the buffaloes. Hi there, yes. You are a handsome devil, aren't you? Another one is going to cross very shortly. The oxpeckers, they're flying off, going to sit in a dead tree somewhere or find something else that's less mobile than these buffaloes. It's a cold wind though, I'm surprised. I would have thought the oxpeckers would just stay huddled on the backs of the buffaloes to stay nice and warm. Beverly, you asked a question, but I didn't quite get it. Maybe if you can just repeat that for me, please, Lindeka. Oh, hornworms, or the larvae of horn moths, are not really a problem as such. I've never seen them feeding on or being involved in the horns of living animals, but certainly when this buffalo dies, its horns will be left on the ground, and the horn moth's larvae will definitely feed on the keratin sheath that goes around the horns, but I wouldn't say that they're a problem. There's a few of them, but they're not a problem as such. They are quite natural, and it's all part of the natural cycle, breaking down the fibers and putting them back into the soil. Ecology, isn't it wonderful?
You can see this young lioness is still staring very intently in a direction as animals went, and every now and again she's been peering off in the direction she's staring at now. Now, she initially, when the animals started coming down, moved away from her pride into this shady spot, and I think there's a chance that she is going to loop around to the other side, right behind us, all the way around, maybe to behind to the southwestern point of the watering hole, and then from there she might even lead the charge. Now, I mentioned earlier she is the youngest out of the 5 large lionesses, and she has recently been showing quite a lot of potential as an essential member of the hunting group. Now, she has been leading charges. She's also been great at reading the situation and knowing where exactly to be positioned once the hunt starts. She's also recently had 2 young cubs, and these cubs we haven't seen for the last couple of days. We did see tracks of them 2 days ago with the whole pride, and then since then we haven't seen them again, but I'm sure they're not too far from where these lions are at the moment, because at some point she needs to head back to go and feed them. Meryl, how do lions communicate to each other during a hunt? That is indeed something that comes as a mystery, especially since they seem to operate like a well-oiled machine, and they know exactly where each of them have their own position, where they need to be in place. They know which ones are the ones that has the best chance, and then they pretty much look and they see each other. They got those dark markings on the back of the ears, their tail tufts. They have very in-tuned senses like hearing and their sense of smell. And then once they slowly start. First few set themselves up in the right position, taking into account where the wind's coming from, where the best cover is. And then the others watch them carefully. Once they see that those ones are in position, then they'll reposition themselves to a position that they will be able to assist to the best possible way. But if they're far off, they often look for those black markings behind the ears, which they will be able to see from the back, and also as it moves through the grass. So they constantly watch their own pride members moving, every move they make very carefully, and then they keep an eye on the prey animal the whole time as well. And that's the way. It's a lot of visual communication. And then also they listen out in case there are other animals that they were unaware nearby that spotted one of their members. They might start alarming, and the rest of the pride knows. That might maybe spook their potential prey animal at certain points. But in that case, those animals might get a bit confused, might get frantic, and they might run right into the lions waiting for them. So often a little bit of confusion actually assists a little bit in the hunt. Something's piqued the interest of these two, and I can see they're looking back. It looks like there's a few impalas in the far end of this watering hole. Now they're also moving away, and by the looks of it, only some of the younger lions have picked up on those ones. Impalas clearly don't have any idea that the lions are here, though. You can see casually wagging their tails. Their heads are halfway down to the ground to feed or anything they might pick up along the way. And if you have a look at that site there, right there, see the black ears? That's pretty much what the other lions look out for when they're hunting. Rob and I also like young males, especially this one. I saw him grow up since he was a little cub, and you kind of get to know them over the years. Although he's a wild animal, you do tend to associate with him a little bit. This guy, he's big, so he stands his ground, and although the two large males in this pride have really tried to get him to go, because he's on his own, he hasn't really tried to move off. And every time we think that he's left, he keeps coming back. I guess probably doesn't want to move off on his own. You can see that impala's checking out for danger. The wind coming from right behind her. She'll be able to smell anything. Although the lions are still in the good position not to be smelt by these impalas. And if they keep moving in the direction that they're going, then there is a chance that they might pick up on the scent of the lions. But in that case, they'll move off into that direction, and that means they will know about the lions, but their position still wouldn't be compromised for any other animals. Londeka, for lions to swim, I have not seen lions swim often, and I think for them to be able to get into that water, especially with this cold wind blowing and swimming, they really need to have a strong motivation. Maybe if something is inside the water, this water is not very deep at the moment, it's quite shallow. See that? Impala looks a little bit alarmed. Now maybe it might have picked up on the lion's scent blowing that way, or maybe something spooked it up there in the denser bush. They seem to have settled now. Ooh, there's one looking this way. And then to the rest of them. I think they might be suspecting something, but I don't think they know about the lions as of yet. But for lions to swim, I think they're going to have a strong motivation. Something has to be dying within the water, or something has to be stuck on the other side. Otherwise, they'll move around the water and rather avoid getting into the water like most cats. But having said that, we know that they can swim for sure. And they have been seen swimming in certain parts out of desperation. See, they just keep watching everything very carefully. It's getting warmer now, even though the wind's still cool. The sun is quite warm, and therefore more and more animals will come down to drink. Normally on a warm, wind-still day, they would come down earlier, and I think these lions know that very well. You can see there's a little bit of excitement, a quick movement. Every time something moves or a potential prey animal comes down, they get quite excited and they look extra interested. And there's going to be a lot happening around this watering hole today. And I think it might be a very, very good idea to stay here as long as they can. You can see it go, the excitement goes up and down. There's some moving. Look at that one, a young one actually. She looks like she's got her ears down and her head down. This might be a fool's attempt at the hunt, but nonetheless one has to give her credit for the effort. Maybe she might just be going for a drink. Ooh, I can hear something alarming. I think she might have been spotted. It's not the cleverest of approaches, to be honest. You see, she looks like she's in stalking mode. Look at that. Once she moves into the shade, she kind of moves slower. She knows she's a little bit more hidden there. I'm not sure exactly what she's seeing, but 10 out of 10 for effort and suspense, or raising the suspense. Maybe it was also an attempt to try and see if any of the others might join her, but I don't think so. At this stage they all look like they're still in the same spot. And it looks like she has just gone to settle there. I think maybe she was just pushing her luck.
Well, we've got a young male kudu who's looking towards Indlovu Dam at our camp. Looks like it wants to come and have a drink, but it's a little bit nervous, maybe because of the wind and also because it's out in the open. But look at those massive satellite dish ears. They can pick up all the little sounds that are around them. But now with the wind, it looks very nervous because its big ears, which it uses to great effect when it's nice and still and quiet, are being a little bit affected by this quite strong wind. It's a beautiful antelope though, still quite young. I can't tell exactly how old it is, probably just over a year old to be honest. Yeah, I wouldn't say much older than a year, because the horns are still quite short. They do grow quickly though. Within about 3 or 4 years this kudu will have quite nice big horns with a few spirals on them. But for now it's just gorgeous. Look at the stripes and the sleek body and that luscious mane, which serves the purpose of making them look a little larger than they actually are, often to impress females and to chase away other males. This one's probably not even thinking about females just yet. It's far too young to be mating, and there's lots of big bulls in the area, but a powerful antelope already. You can see that sleek muscle on its back and on its legs. The kudus are well known for being able to jump really, really high, over 6 foot from a single bound. There's a female also in the area, probably the mother of this kudu. She's also just feeding on some bush. It looks like she's going to go and join that young male, or just find slightly tastier leaves. You see also big ears, but the female doesn't have horns. She's got beautiful stripes. Very tall antelope, the tallest of all the antelopes we get here in Pride Lands. Annette, I'm glad you're enjoying these kudu. They are my favorite antelope. Absolutely gorgeous, tall, sleek, powerful antelopes. And I'm glad you're enjoying the drive. It's been pretty exciting. I heard there was wild dogs earlier. There's lions about. It's a cool day. Every day in the bush is a cool day though. This is so nice. We don't often see kudus out in the open like this. They must certainly have been in this drainage line, but because of this cold wind, they've come out a little bit, maybe to get a bit of warm sun on their bodies. It's not the usual habitat for a kudu. See, that grey body and those stripes lends itself perfectly to being amongst the thickets and the vegetation. It's also why they don't occur in big herds. It's pointless to be in a big herd if you are having that beautiful camouflage. I'd love to show you how they walk. It's interesting to see that kudus do something called direct registering, which is where wherever their front foot steps, their back foot will step exactly on that point. If this one walks past somewhere in the open, I'd love to show you exactly how they do that. And that's a way for them to be very, very quiet when they're walking through any of the thickets. She has to be vigilant. There's only 2 of them, so every now and again you see they stop and they listen. So look, you can't see it very clearly, but you can see exactly where the front foot steps up, the back foot steps exactly there. It's not easy to see, but in their tracks, it's often very, very recognizable.
Ooh. Two of them just put their heads down. I think they've given up. But there was a long time that most of them stared in the direction of where that other lioness went. And it's almost like there's the excitement of the animals that came down to drink now is gone. And now they're just hoping for a lone animal that might have traveled right at the back of the herd. Now you often find that with these large majestic cats, something like this, or them just picking up their head, something coming down to drink might be a chance, and everybody's always hoping for something exciting to happen. But occasionally, or actually more often than not, to be honest, nothing happens. But they tend to always look interested. And I guess that's just within their nature. When they see something move, especially at this stage. I had a look earlier, some of them I saw a little bit of blood on the chest and around their chins. So it looks like they might have had something small to eat. On the white ones it's often a little bit more clear. So I do think they're not extremely hungry, but because they're a predator and they know this is a good chance, if a large prey item comes down sometime today, they might definitely try their luck. Now with this, I'm not 100% sure. There's a good chance, and we're hoping that they might stay here, but if there's a good opportunity that comes round their way, then there's every chance that these lions might get up and they might move, attempt a hunt. In that case, the more than likely area they'll head to is more on the other side of the watering hole from where they are. So I think this afternoon we'll try and make our way back this way to come and see if anything changed. And I'd like to thank all our viewers to join us here with the lions on World Lion Day and all the amazing other things we saw, wild dogs. And we'll see you this afternoon.